Hello and welcome into the Coach on the Couch podcast with your hosts, Martin Fleming and Steven Alexander Simmonds. This fortnightly podcast covers various topics relating to subjects from career and work, health, nutrition and well-being to parenting, relationships, and much more. Each episode will deal with a particular area of these. So, if you are interested in learning and hearing some different thoughts, ideas, and even get some tips or helpful suggestions on these areas of life, or perhaps you are into self-development, then we hope you will stay with us and hopefully enjoy a fun, insightful, and what we hope will be an interesting discussion for you.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of Coach on the Couch. And in today's episode you will find it's a bit of a different episode. So although you still have myself and Steven Alexander Simmonds, it's not one particular topic. So I don't want to spoil the episode before we get started. So, but it is slightly different to how we usually do an episode, and but I hope you'll enjoy it and find it an interesting episode. So, with that said, let's go straight into the episode. Hello again. What do you want to talk about today then, Steve? What are we looking at today?
I think for me, I had a situation where, the other day, I just felt so tired and so worn out. And there's this sense of, you've got people, well-meaning people, say, oh, you need to rest and you need to look after yourself, you need to do this, you need to do that. And while mentally you acknowledge that and you understand that and you appreciate that, the reality is that actually your reality is not their reality. And it's very easy for somebody else to give advice, but they're not in your reality. And so when you're in that moment, you have that decision to make of, well, actually, what happens when I take the pedal off the metal, so to speak? If I was to say, okay, well, I will listen to what these people say, then actually what is going to happen? And the thing is that you are more than likely to collapse because your body kind of adjusts, it kind of self-regulates, rightly or wrongly, it self-regulates to what it is used to. So it kind of acclimatizes. And so suddenly, if you stop doing that, then actually your body goes into shutdown mode. And so actually, is that the most beneficial thing for you? So is listening to other people as beneficial as it should be, maybe? So for me, the other day, it was a case of, okay, I hear what people are saying. I recognise that maybe I need to rest a little bit more. However, that said, I still have a certain amount of income I need to bring in. I certainly have personal goals I want to achieve. And if I don't achieve those, then actually that's going to have a mental health effect. So it's almost like everything has an equal and opposite? Every action has an equal and opposite reaction, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
And so for me, it was a case of, okay, so I recognise I want to stop, but how do I carry on when I know that I want to stop? So that for me was the battle I had the other week.
Okay. So you want to stop, but you want to continue. Is that right?
Well, no, I think I mean, I'm hearing you laughing because it is almost laughable, because it's almost an equal opposite kind of thing. Because the reality is, the other day I was playing this game, and it was called an AR game, and it's my own like little game I play in my own head, if you like. And basically, the AR game is you pretend there's this alternative reality version of yourself. Right. This is just what I do. I haven't read anything. I haven't seen it. It's just something that I started to do recently. And what I do is I imagine does this alternative reality version of me doing. So like we talk about, not we necessarily, but there's this whole living your best life. There's this living your dream life. You see it online all the flipping time, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. If you do this program, then you're going to live your best life. If you're going to leave this program, you're going to do this, and you're going to live this crazy life, and you don't have to work for it because you're going to get these millions and blah blah blah. Do you know what I mean? You see it all over social media, don't you?
Uh-huh.
And so the reality is, what would this alternative reality version of me be doing in an ideal world? And I was thinking about it. So this alternative version of me would be stress-free, it would be relaxed, it would be on the beach more, it would be not worrying about things like bills. I mean, obviously, bills are a big thing at the moment with the economy the way it is. So it'd be a completely stress-free version of me. So yeah, that's where I was at the other day. But then this kind of reality kind of came in, and basically it said, well, that kind of life isn't going to happen by itself, at some point. It's like, you see people going on holiday. I mean, holiday is a fantastic example of this. Many of us say, oh, I need a holiday, right? I need a break, I need a holiday. And this is what amuses me about this whole concept of going on holiday, because people book, wherever they want to book, that's up to them. And then they go away and they spend a lot of money, because they go a bit crazy. It's like, I'm on holiday, it's okay, you're going to spend lots of money. Mm-hmm. And then while they're on holiday, they're stressing about different stuff. Maybe they've got the kids to worry about, or maybe it's too hot, or maybe the bar isn't open as much as they... And so, even on holiday, they've got all these stresses and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. And then when they come back off holiday, there's this kind of two things going on. There's I've spent so much money, I need to work even harder now to replace the money that I've spent. Or... I need to work hard because I need another break. I need to have a break from the break.
Yeah, that's what, when you were saying about it, that was the first thing that came to my mind, was most people come back and say, I need another holiday.
So it's this kind of like, this whole kind of holiday thing kind of got me thinking, because my dream, I suppose, if you like, we were talking about dreams, mm-hmm. is that to have that... that original holiday feel. So that kind of, you've been on the plane, whatever, and you arrive and it's like, yes, I'm on holiday. I mean, I don't know at what point you go on holiday and you have that, oh, I'm on holiday feel. I mean, is it the pre-packing? Is it on the journey? At what point do you say, woohoo? That kind of butterfly feeling of, I'm on holiday.
I think that varies in terms of your trip, and I think it varies person to person. I think some people really like the whole thing. It's a bit like a Christmas thing, it's like when people love, some people love all of Christmas, even from the, getting the decorations out, putting them all up and putting lights up and doing all of that. And it's not just the getting the presents and Christmas Day, they like the whole thing. And then some people don't. Some people, hate the whole kind of preparation and whatever else. And I think that's similar with holiday. I think that you get some people like the whole experience from when they've got to start packing and thinking about what they're and then other people probably feel that when they get off the plane or get to their destination or whatever. And I think it depends on your destination as well. I think if you're going somewhere you've never been before, and you've got that whole build-up anticipation of, and your holiday's finally there, and you got there, it's that can also make you feel that way as well. I think it's so I think it varies really.
I mean, if I could kind of bottle up that kind of excitement, that for me would be my goal, and it's something that I've been trying to achieve probably since I moved to Norfolk, I think, because it's supposed to be a slower pace of life up here from the city life. And what I do is I take myself back to Greece. I once went to Greece, and what I loved about that place was during the day you wouldn't see that many people about. They'd be all on the beach and stuff like that, and then at night time all the bars would open and the buzz would feel amazing. And I said to myself, oh wow, this would be amazing, to have that buzz of the nighttime feel, and then just spend the rest of the day like snoozing or relaxing on the beach. And the irony of that dream is that I kind of have that, but I don't do that enough. Because I'm so worn out from working, I don't do the other part. Do you know what I mean?
So, yeah, I get. The only question that's in my head at the moment is, and without going into a whole full-fledged coaching session, is like
you want to,
but kind of how. What do you need to have that, or there's that. So I'm not. I know you're going to come back with the whole kind of working thing and whatever, but I think maybe even beyond the monetary thing, what else do you need to succeed at that? Because like you've said about moving and moving places that meant to have a lesser pace, and so it needs to be something with it to some degree, as well as you having the external. There has to be the internal somewhere, and my feeling would be that there's something missing on the internal side, because if you're not finding it externally, it's there must be something missing where you're not quite feeling it yourself for some other whatever reason. You can't recreate that feeling and whatever environment you're in. I don't know if that makes sense in any way, but yeah, that would be my kind of.
I think you're right. I think you're absolutely right. And if I was to kind of soul search, it'd be around. There's this thing around satisfaction and around fulfillment. A lot of people talk about, oh, I don't feel fulfilled in my job, or I don't feel fulfilled in life. And so I guess for me personally, I don't think it's not that I don't feel financially fulfilled. I think there's still that financial instability, if you like, which doesn't fill me with peace.
Because you spoke about your alternative life, and you spoke about all these. So it's like, what if you had that alternative life? What would it have taken to get that alternative life? And is that purely a financial thing that you would have to do? Like the working to, I don't know, to afford this, or to pay off this, or whatever? Or is there other things that you would need to have or need to do to achieve that alternative life?
I think there's a need, or there's a call to go back to simplicity, I think. And I was thinking about this, because there's no reason why I couldn't have that life if I wanted to. But the reality of it is that I probably, after 2 weeks of this alternative reality, I'll be bored as hell.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's almost like there's this internal drive within me of continuously wanting to strive, even though I don't necessarily know what I'm striving for or I'm striving against. There's just this, you used the word momentum, I suppose, earlier. there's this momentum inside that says, keep on going, keep on going, keep on going. So yeah, there's this kind of constantness, and if I'm in this place of rest, this momentum wheel, if you like, will just be nudging away at me more and more. So if I'm on this desert island, for example, you know, just relaxing, enjoying the sun, enjoying the waves, at some point I'll be like, okay, well, this is great, but now I need to go and build a little house. Okay, why? You don't need a house. Yes, I do. I need to go. And so I'd end up giving myself stuff to do anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So even though there's no obligation or responsibility to do this stuff, I'd almost obligate myself to do stuff. And it's almost like a kind of a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Okay, and because you use the word strive, so, but then you're saying you don't know what you're striving for. So, what is the purpose? What is the reason? Then, I mean, if you don't know what you're, how can you strive, or how can you say about momentum, and you have this thing nagging at you to just continually do, like basically continually do. So, why are you doing it though?
I think it's born from this, from a place of fear, if you like.
Fear
of not wanting to be in a place of hardship, not wanting to be in a place of poverty, not wanting to be in a place of mentally that worthlessness. And I associate worthlessness, not always, with being financially poor. So, for example...
Okay.
Yeah.
But if you're on this desert island and you're having the time of your life, then you don't need to worry about being financially poor.
No, this is very true.
But you said you'd still go off and build a shelter, or you'd still go off and do whatever. So I just, where's that nudging, that kind of wanting to do coming from then at that point? Like, I mean, you say about fear of, but then obviously we take the financial aspect out of that. If you're alone on an island, okay, we can do the whole reality checking in a minute, but if that was this, you know, something an environment you're in, what else would be the thing that you know, what if there's still other bits of fear there, or it's yeah, I'm just trying to understand the other reason of striving, or
it's a good question, isn't it? Because where does that desire to strive from? And and it's a great question that you actually bring it up, because the funny thing is, I only had it, I guess, probably after my separation, because I didn't really have that desire. And even now, even though I'm talking to you, I don't have necessarily a desire to strive. I'm striving out of, maybe this is where the confliction is it's not a natural desire to strive. I'm striving out of a sense of obligation, out of a sense of responsibility, out of a sense of, because I have to, not necessarily because I want to.
Responsibility to whom, and you have to for why?
Well, I have responsibilities, like obviously I'm a father of 2 kids, so there's that sense of upkeeping them. There's that sense of, you know, they're getting older, so their needs are going to change. You know, and as a father, I mean, it was heartbreaking. Like the other day, we went into the shops, for example, and it was only like a silly thing. It might have been a silly thing. I can't remember what it was. But my daughter was looking at something. You know, I go into the shops and I say, look, you know, what do you want? And sometimes they'll look at something and they'll go, say it's a toy store, for example. You know, we like going to the toy stores, and they'll look at something, and then you see their little faces light up, and then you ask them, well, is that something that you want? And then they look at it with, yes, I do want that. But then they look at the price tag, and it's like, well, Daddy, this is too expensive, or, you know, we shouldn't we shouldn't spend this much money on this. But yet as a father, I'm like, well, actually, do you know what? If that's what you want, then I will get that for you, because I have the resources to do that, you know? And actually that is an amazing feeling to have. Now, I'm not saying that there's that disrespect for money or we shouldn't justify that. I'm just saying that actually, if that's what they want and we have the resources to do that, then why not?
Mm-hmm.
And it's heartbreaking, I think, to be in that position when actually you do have to be very, very mindful of finances. And that for me is something that, you know, I struggled with. And I think there's that sense of being provider. I don't know if that's a masculine thing necessarily or genetic thing. I don't know what it is. Or because actually that's the way that life is. I think, you know, parents provide for their children. That's just the way it is. And if you don't provide, then you feel a failure, whether it's you know, a 10p bag of sweets or whether it's a £10 toy.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I think it's probably historically and you know, generationally, don't know, would typically be a masculine thing, but I think I think really, once you're a parent, I'd say that it's a parenting thing, really. I mean, you know, a parent wants to provide whatever they can provide for their child in the best way possible, and I don't think that really matters whether that's, you know, a mother or a father. But I mean, because you said about like having to opposed to wanting to, but then when you're saying things there, that also sounds like you want to do. You want, you know, so in terms of you have your responsibility for your children, but then, you know, you have your own, you know, for example, you're working to get all this money, but you have that thing where, you know, you then want to kind of be able to either for them to buy that toy or you know, opposed to being, you know, kind of, or for them to feel that you can't afford it or whatever. So I'm just kind of I'm just wondering if that's kind of a correct thing to say, whether you want to or don't. You know, I don't know if I'm explaining this clearly, really.
I think it's great that as men, I think we can have this honest and open discussion, because there's a difference, isn't there, between what society says and having those pressures around us. And so, for example, you know, you've had partnerships and stuff like that. You've been in partnerships, you've got a child, the same way, you know, I've had partnerships and I've got children, and we're both men. We both identify as men, putting it out there. And so we've both, and we're kind of generationally, we're very, very close. And so there is that sense, isn't there, that we've been brought up with those definitions of yeah, and those values, and that what is that identity of a father figure, I guess, and what it means to be a man. But then for me, I'm questioning that now, actually, just sitting here thinking, well, actually, what it meant to be a man back then, is that still the same today? You know, as two guys sitting on a sofa, 2022, what does it mean to be a man now? Is it still the same?
I think being a man can be different, but I don't think being a parent, or I mean, yes, how you parent is different, maybe from, you know, now from what it used to be, but as in what's the expectation as of a man, and just that alone, I think yes, that might, there's so many different factors to that in terms of, whether it's different or not different, or things around around emotions, around what would be considered more touchy-feely topics, or things that would typically, in the past and traditionally, a man was a man. You were hard. You didn't cry. You didn't, you don't express. You just get on with things, and hence why there's so much build up with within a man or whatever, when it comes to problems and trying to sort through problems, and then we have the high rates of male suicides and stuff, and it's changing, and it's changed a lot in the years, and I think it's starting to become more accepted that it's okay to express emotion and to be this way, and to shut emotions and stuff traditionally were a weakness. It was like, for a man, it was like, if you do anything like that, or you break down or you cry, you're weak and a baby, and those sort of things. And I think it's now recognized that that's not the case. And so that from that point of view, and just kind of going back a little bit to stuff and responsibility, though, is that, and going back slightly into the whole parenting thing, though, is as a parent who's responsible, though, to provide for your child or your children, and to be wanting to provide, give them the best or whatever. There's all the parental and that kind of responsibility as an adult for a child. However, to do your best for that child and to be the best person you can be, do you not have a responsibility to yourself?
I'm saying ooh because that is such a deep question, isn't it? Because one of the topics that we just before this we briefly covered, we mentioned, is that sense of loving yourself and that sense of worth. And so for me, there's that sense of, well, actually, it's this I matter versus I don't matter. And so when our kids are involved, it's different because they matter. So therefore our focus is on more on them. So I can quite easily cruise around in life going, I don't matter, internally, because actually it's all about my kids. So while I'm focusing on my kids, everything's okay. And I don't have to think about or worry about the I don't matter aspect. But what you're saying now is actually we have an obligation to ourselves that says, well, actually, we are important. We should be doing this for ourselves. We have this obligation, this opportunity for ourselves. Never mind our kids. We have it for ourselves.
Have it for yourself first before you can pass that over.
Before you can pass it over.
Those things. So it's that age-old analogy that they use about the oxygen masks on the plane. So you meant to put one on yourself before helping anyone else.
You're meant to, yes, I agree.
So, and if you don't, then you won't be of any help to anyone else if you can't breathe and you collapse. So.
But then your actions could actually help somebody else live by sacrificially giving.
Not necessarily in that situation, but anyway, you can't give to others unless you've looked after yourself first. Otherwise, like when we first started, like you were saying about kind of working all the time, whatever, and those sort of things. And it's like, if that's all you do, then at some point that those energy levels and that all that stuff just drains out. So all you're trying to do all the time is like fill a bath with the plug out.
So that's an interesting analogy, isn't it?
I know most people don't have baths these days, but but yeah, that's so you're putting in your, and you might be putting in, even if that's a financial, so you're pouring in financially because you're working, but energetically, and what you actually have as a quality person to give, and especially as a parent to your child is less, because you're only partially who you should be, because you're so tired, you're so drained. There's things are just being taken all the time.
So then as a coach, as a consultant, if you like, what coaching tips would you give? I won't say the word advice, because there's connotations with that word advice, isn't there? But so how would you advise your clients? Because this scenario is not an unusual one. It's I think it's ripe actually within the world itself, isn't it? And
it is. I mean, I think. See, if I was working with someone, I know it would go beyond a one session coaching session, because there's all a question of delving deeper into the views and the perspective. So because we've touched on both sides of that. So you were saying about why about kind of your focus is on your children, and when you're focused on those, then you don't really care about yourself. But and as we say, there's all about the whole self-worth or loving yourself and that kind of thing. So there's lots of other questions around kind of that could be gone into, and it still kind of to some degree would come back to first off looking at how you would look at something and those sort of stuff, and why is it that or at what times are you so focused on the child or your children and that kind of thing, that and what happens in between, if you when they're not with you, then what's happening, and lots and lots of different things like that. So it's I don't feel I could kind of give a straightforward kind of one solution fits all kind of answer in that in this one podcast episode. I think it's for me, the biggest takeaway from this would be that about kind of looking at oneself and kind of seeing if you're actually being, when I said before about a responsibility to yourself. So as the kind of common phrases these days about kind of being mindful of yourself, and kind of being responsible for yourself as well, and then that way then during those times when you don't have the children around or whatever, those sort of things, that you can you can then be the best person you can be for them. So and that sounds so a lot more easier than, you know, said than done, and it's a very vague answer, because at that point I can hear now in my head, like, if we would carry on with, you know, and going deeper into that, you'd be going, well, when I'm not, when my children aren't around, I need the money, so I'll be working, and that's it. And it's but so there's lots of other issues that you'd have to tackle and go into with someone when you're dealing with that kind of stuff. But
I think some of the take home for me is the question around what we do. Who is that serving? Who is that serving? And this is this sense of, well, if it's not serving us, then actually we need to question that. Okay, so do we still need to carry on with this? You know, what is its purpose? You know, we started off using that word purpose. If it's for other people, then again we ask ourselves, well, actually, what is the purpose of that action? So again, is that beneficial to us or that relationship?
Or can you give that, even if there's a purpose or whatever to that serving others, are you in a position to be able to do that? That's the question. That's the other question. Because we might want to do that, but you know, be able to provide something, whether it's emotional support or whether it's physical, you know, kind of literal time being there or whatever. It's like we might want to, but then are we in a position to do so? So especially if it's emotional, that then goes back to that whole thing. If you just give and you're not in an emotional good place with yourself, then you're just gonna, you know, it's never going to work for you, and it's going to just drain. And
I think you just talked yourself into a kind of almost like a part two of this podcast, actually, almost indirectly, because I think that's a great question. Is, you know, how do you energize yourself? How do you motivate yourself and stuff like that? And how do you get yourself into, I suppose, that, I don't like to use the word, that peak state, but like you said, you know, throughout this whole conversation, what I've been listening, there's this sense of, like you said, if you're not in a position where you can, then you can't, and if you can't, then you won't, and if you won't, then that has knock-on effects. And so in order to be able to give or be what you want to be, then you need to be in a certain mindful space, energetic space, emotional space. And we know that life is tough sometimes, and we can be pulled in all sorts of directions. And so I suppose the question is, I think for this second episode, is how can we, you know, re-energize ourselves? How can we motivate ourselves? And so maybe it might be worth looking at maybe some techniques or something, how we can do that next time.
I think in terms of the being pulled in different directions, I think one thing to note there is I think is to really assess each of those directions, each of those commitments, those responsibilities, and say, like, again, we're back to, you know, what's the value of those? Who is it serving? What, you know, and even looking at how things are done or whatever. So if it's done, is this going to be better for me or better for if it was done differently, even if it has to be done, and then, you know, that in itself I suppose is a little bit of a strategy, but kind of, yeah. And before we kind of, I suppose, finish up, that my last thing kind of goes right back then. So because we just spoke about purpose and stuff, so and some of these other questions that we've just like kind of dealt with and stuff, is so this alternative life of relaxation, or and kind of evening buzz and all the this life that you kind of would like, or whatever. So what's the purpose to that? What's the reason for that?
I think for me it's that sense of coming to a place of peace, I think. And having that sense of fulfillment, peace. I don't know, to be honest. It's a great question.
See, there's again, I'm back to see if we were doing a whole coaching around that's another thing I would investigate with yourself, would be, because you speak about like striving and that kind of and that stuff. So it's like, okay, so if you did all this striving, or if you had that alternative life, what's the purpose of it? Because you also then said, well, you have this urge to keep striving. So it's, I know you said at the beginning, well, yeah, you'd have that for a couple of weeks, and then, so if there's a level of fulfillment, then that's still not fulfilling you. If then in 2 weeks' time or whatever, it wasn't going to be enough for you. So then, for me, that brings me back to questions about yourself and your that inner peace and that inner fulfillment, that inner stuff, the more deeper stuff, rather than looking at externals. Because it's that when you were initially talking about it, it was that age-old saying of the grass is greener came to mind as well. So and I think there's a lot to be, when you look at that saying, there's a lot to be said for sometimes you see things around as well within say personal development, where they say about acceptance and kind of, I know we haven't really, you said about satisfaction, and we didn't really talk about gratitude and stuff, but being at peace with what things are now, even though that doesn't stop you from striving, doesn't stop you from wanting something further on. You can still have vision or dreams or whatever, but actually feeling okay with how things are at this point in time. And that sounds very simple as well, but it's not an easy place to get to if you don't have that inner peace. So yeah, that was another thing I kind of was thinking of. So
maybe another episode could be, how do you find peace?
I think you came up with about 3 other episodes already. So.
There you go.
So yeah, well, I hope it will. I don't know if today was of any use to your own situation, Steve. But it was an interesting topic to cover, and so yeah. So for now, thanks for your time, Steve, and we'll catch up again soon.
Cheers.
Thank you again for being with us today, and I hope you enjoyed the episode. This episode was obviously a bit different to usual, so I hope you still enjoyed the content and the various kind of topics covered. Obviously, it was kind of a mini coaching mentoring session with Steve, and a particular challenge that he was facing, and I just hope that perhaps you can gain something useful from it, understand maybe even the concept of coaching and mentoring, and how that works, and how kind of the process of coaching can help, coaching and mentoring. So it was a bit of a combined approach. So it wasn't pure coaching. There was aspects of mentoring in there, but yeah, I hope you found it an interesting episode, and one that was slightly different this time, and we will be back shortly with another episode. So thank you again for joining us, and we look forward to being with you very soon. Bye for now.
Thank you for listening to the fortnightly Coach on the Couch podcast with your hosts, Martin Fleming and Steven Alexander Simmonds. You can find this podcast on the following platforms: Spotify, Anchor, and Google Podcasts, and more platforms to follow. You can leave comments and feedback directly on the Anchor platform, or you can contact us directly by emailing us at coachonthecouch22@gmail.com. Thank you again for joining us, and we look forward to being with you soon.